Good morning, Jolly Cruise family from Old San Juan, Puerto Rico. My name is Jason, and I am the Jolly Cruise vlogger. And today, the wifey and I are going to do an excursion that we did book through the cruise line on the Carnival Celebration. It's called Sip and Stroll, Old San Juan's Coffee and History. So sit back, let's learn more about that cup of coffee that you're drinking as we stroll around Old San Juan, Puerto Rico.
So there's going to be 3 stops for the coffee or coffee stop. So for the first stop, like I mentioned, it's going to be a hot coffee that I've already given them the order so they can work on it. And then for the second and third stop is more like a modern folk type of coffee product. That's a little bit on the sweeter and colder side, okay? So I'll try to do all the stops like this just so everybody can hear me okay. It's a very old city that we're going to be walking through, so everybody be mindful of your step. Just make sure, whenever you're taking pictures, both feet are grounded and avoid any trips and falls. But anything happens or anything that you need, that you want, that's happening, you guys let me know, okay? That also goes for questions. I like to do the tours interactive, so if you have any question, except politics, I do a general thing for politics, but no opinions, just so we can avoid any issues, okay? But other than that, you guys let me know whatever's on your mind. I would like to start planning your next vacation for when you guys come back, so let me know what you like. So let's head out there. The first stop is just going to be a couple of steps away at pier number 2, so just follow me in that direction and we'll get there in less than 5 minutes. Right this way. Okay, everybody, we got everybody back? Okay, yes we do, guys. We are here at Cafe Colao. This is actually one of my favorite coffee spots here in Old San Juan. And this coffee spot here, they have alliances with different coffee producers that we have high up on the mountains there, inside of the big island that you see there in the back. And it's a really great shop because they work directly with these people that grow and harvest the coffee, so there's not a bunch of middlemen, taking all the money. And they have some really great coffee that they also have available in the seats. So if later on you guys want to get some coffee to take home, I always recommend don't get it ground, get it in the seat so it can last longer with the flavor and the aromas. And for that, this is one of my top recommendations. But we're right next to the ship, so you guys can do that later on as well. Now, unfortunately, we got a lot of hurricanes and stuff like that. So in 2017, Hurricane Maria really did a number on our coffee industry. That's why at this moment, we're still not where we want to be. The production is still, getting back on track. And it takes about 6 years for a coffee plant that you grow, that you plant, for it to actually start bearing fruit. So we're getting there, but it's taking a little bit of time. So coffee, guys, you know where it comes from?
Coffee beans.
Any city, any place in particular? Everybody always gets Colombia. No, but there was no coffee in the New World prior to the 1700s. The origin of coffee we can actually trace back to Ethiopia, back in Africa, where a lot of things originated. This is where we have coffee growing wild, and where we can sort of trace back the history too. Now, we're going back to the 1st century. No cameras, no computers, no evidence really of what went down on those times. But the most accepted theory that we have for how we got to coffee goes back to this time to a goat herder named Kaldi. So this guy Kaldi, he was in the mountains of Ethiopia herding his goats. And I don't know if you guys have ever interacted with goats, but they tend to be a little bit on the crazy side, right? Jump around, But he was noticing that his goats were going extra crazy, and he was like, what's happening, what's into these goats? And he noticed that that they were like dancing around after they ate the cherries from this particular bush, the red cherries. So he was like, oh, there must be magic in these things. So he took a couple of the fruits and he took them back to his monastery. And he said to his older, I don't know what's happening, but these goats, they eat these things and they go extra crazy. They're almost flying through the air, jumping around like crazy. There must be magic in there. Check it out. So they did what they knew how to do. They made a tea out of it. Just put the ripe, red beans and some water, boiled that thing, took one sip, and we're like, ugh. Threw it in the fire. It tasted awful. And we thought, that was the end of it. But after a little while, this wonderful aroma started to emerge from the fire. And they got to the idea, maybe it's not to be consumed raw, but you gotta roast it. So from there, they say, there's no evidence about it, but this is the most accepted theory, about how they got to the first cup of coffee. But all in all, the first way that coffee was consumed was not in a beverage like you guys are having today. They actually made a paste out of the beans, and together with some animal fat, they would chew on that for energy. We all know that coffee has a very high content of caffeine, and this is something that is very important for the history of coffee, because the effects of the caffeine have led to it being such an important beverage and for it to be so consumed worldwide. So back to Ethiopia is where we get the roots, and then it was really in the Arabic world where coffee got its start. The first coffee shops that we can document go back to Mecca. So it was mainly among the Muslims that the coffee got its start. They were consuming it a lot, and it was seen. Coffee, religion, and politics have a lot of influence about where coffee is today. So during those times, it was mainly the Muslims that were consuming it, but it got to be more and more popular among the Catholics as well. But the leaders of the Catholics, they were saying, this is something that the Muslims drink. This must be a drink of the devil, right? We can't drink this. We gotta talk to the Pope. We gotta get something done so this can be banned among us, because we don't know what it's about. So it was really interesting, very woke Pope, I would like to say, that got it to the Catholics as well. So Pope Clement VIII, he was commissioned with sort of outlining the coffee for the Catholics, and he was, like I said, the woke Pope. He said, I can't say this is from the devil. I don't know what it's about. Give me a cup of this thing so I can try it and let you know, if it's really the devil in there. So this guy, he had one sip of a cup of coffee, and he was like, no. This can't be the devil's drink. We're gonna fool the devil, and we're gonna baptize this drink. So he baptized the coffee, and this is where among the Catholics it really got to be a very, very popular drink as well. And different places, the religion has influenced it a lot. For the United States, the politics. You guys were tea drinkers back in the day. But then, they put the big taxes on the teas. The Boston Tea Party happened. And what do you guys go to? Coffee, right? So, coffee has a very long history. It really arrived to this part of the world in the 1700s. We credit a French guy, Gabriel Mathieu de Fleet, with bringing us over the first plants of coffee to the island of Martinique. So this was 1700s, and by the late 1700s, we had a lot of production here from coffee in the Caribbean. It was mainly New Santo Domingo, which now we know as Haiti, that was producing most of the coffee. But eventually we had the Haitian Revolution, and from there, the coffee production halted, and it sort of went over to the other islands and the other places in the world. So this is sort of where we got really importance from the coffee here as a product from the island. And it was just developed more and more in the 1800s, where, like I said, we got to be the 5th largest coffee producer of the world here. And just, the coffee that we grow it on the mountains. We don't got the best view from here, but I'll show you guys later. We got beautiful mountains here in the center of the island, and we have perfect conditions for growing coffee. This is why it's so delicious. And it was eventually known in the 1800s as the coffee for the kings and popes, because it was actually requested from different kings in Europe, from popes, that they wanted the coffee from Puerto Rico because they loved it so much and it had such a great reputation. Is everybody done with the coffee? Okay guys, so let's keep on walking so I can show you guys a little bit around the city. So you all know that you are in Puerto Rico, right? Do you guys know what Puerto Rico means? Rich port, or port of riches, or delicious port. Rico is a very diverse word. But for the case of our island, the rich port, that would be correct. But I always like to clear for people that Puerto Rico is not by any means our original name. You see, when Christopher Columbus arrived here, it was his second journey in 1493, but we already had people here. It had already been discovered many years prior to his arrival. We had the Taínos as the native people of our beautiful island. And our Taínos, they were a sophisticated bunch of people. They, of course, had their own language. And in that language, they had their own name for the island. Anybody know it? No J-Lo fans here? No? Borinque. see what it says right there? Boricua? You've heard, yo soy Boricua, para que tú lo sepas. This is the term that most people here use when they speak about their nationality. People here usually don't say I'm Puerto Rican, but they say I'm Boricua. And I think that's a beautiful thing because it honors that original name that the original people had given to the island. So Borinquen is the name that we mostly like to use, when we speak about our home. Christopher Columbus, he didn't call us Puerto Rico either. The name that he had given to the island when he arrived was San Juan Bautista, for St. John the Baptist. Back in the day, they had a tradition that all the newfound lands were going to get named after saints. So right here, we got St. John the Baptist. But then in 1521, the Spanish decided to move their capital settlement here to this island. Because you look at Puerto Rico on a world map and you see this one island, right? And you're like, that's the place. But all in all, we are around 140 islands and cays, so it's really an archipel. And this right here, this is not the main island. This is the Isleta de San Juan, the islet of San Juan. It looks like it's connected to the main island on the maps, but it's only bridges that are really connecting us. So there is water surrounding the entire island. And 1521, they moved here because this was really a perfect, very strategic, very important place, that the Spanish found and developed for doing their business in the New World. Geographic-wise, we're also the nearest spot to Europe. So this bay right here, this was the perfect situation for the Spanish to get everything ready, get all the ships, all the gold and silver, everything in place before making this big journey across the Atlantic back to Europe. So what you see here in the city is mainly the effort that the Spanish have made defensive-wise, to make sure that they stayed in their control. That's why also a lot of the roots of the Puerto Ricans are to the Spanish side. The more that you go inland, the more you see also the Tainos alive, some of the coastal towns, you see a lot of the African culture alive. But all in all, we are a big mix of very different cultures, Spanish, Taino, and African. If you look around, you can't really say, Puerto Ricans look like this or look like that. We would all love to look like J-Lo, but it's not the case. But it's a beautiful thing because there's so much diversity here that there's no real room for racism. And the idea, I think, here is you gotta be a good person, whatever you look like, doesn't matter because we all look different anyways. But anyways, this is the big cultural mix that we have here. The Spanish, they decided a lot of things for us, such as the city, the capital, and the importance that we have right here. And if you're wondering about how we ended up with that name, well, this city that they established here, they called La Ciudad del Puerto Rico, the city of the rich port. The rich port being where you guys park today, this San Juan Bay area, this body of water that we got here, that is completely protected with the island of San Juan. So again, a very, very important detail that led them, to have this area that is very protected, that has very calm waters, that was very good, for parking their ships and for doing all their business. But in the 1500s, no computers, no printers, no satellite imaging. So the first map that they ended up circulating back in Spain, it was so-so. It looks nothing like what we see today. But they made the mistake on that map of writing the name of our capital, Ciudad de Puerto Rico, slightly bigger than the name of the island, San Juan Bautista. And that's where everybody started getting confused and started calling us Puerto Rico. To the point that the Spanish eventually said, let's just go with the flow. We'll leave you guys Puerto Rico and switch up San Juan for the capital. But it's really due to the waters that you guys have here behind you that we got that current name. But you guys know the most beautiful one as well now, Borinquen. That's the one we love. So guys, we're gonna be going in this direction. And other than coffee, we are also really good at rum. We are the rum capital of the world. Around 70% of the rum that you guys consume in the States gets done right here. I'll show you guys the Bacardi factory on the other side of the bay in a little bit. But if you wanna get your drink on later, there's a really nice place right there, that pink house. It's called La Casita de los Rones. It used to be an old merchant bar, but now it's called the Little House of Rum. And I mean, even if you don't want to drink that much, but you just want to take a look around, it's almost like a museum inside. And they have almost all the types of rum that we produce here on the island. And also, it's a straight line to walk back to the ship, so another perk of it. Okay, guys, just two quick things before we continue. One, in most of the squares of the city, you're gonna see a lot of these type of tables set up. Whenever they have a tablecloth that says Turismo Cultural, Artesanía, Artesanos, or that has a logo of the tourism company or the government, it's going to be endorsed artisans, okay? So this is a great option if you want to get some cool souvenirs, that are not made in China. You can check out these guys because they're endorsed by the government and they make sure, you know, that it's actual Puerto Rican hands making the stuff and that it's unique and that it's locally made. So this is a great option for that. And then also, as you walk around this square, you're gonna see that there's some mosaic tiles here on the floor with different names and stuff. So these are representing the different municipalities that we have on the island. We have 78 towns or municipalities. So 78 places that you guys can put on your list for when you come back the next time that you guys can visit. Each one has something beautiful to offer, something beautiful to show for the people. So definitely, you know, a cool thing to do to visit all 78 municipalities. These two that you see right here, Vieques and Culebra, these are two islands that we have on our east coast. Each one of them has a couple of thousand inhabitants and they are the most beautiful beaches that you can find. Culebra was for many years occupied by the US Navy for bombing practices. So it wasn't until the 90s that was actually opened for the public. But over there we have Flamenco Beach, which is world recognized as one of the most beautiful beaches that are out there. It is really like the sand is almost like flowers, so soft, the water is crystal clear. You'll see turtles swimming around, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Vieques has one of our 3 bio bays. You guys know what a bio bay is? So, you know, there's these tiny little things that live in the water that light up. They're dinoflagellados is the name for them. It's you know, they're around the whole ocean. You can see them randomly here and there, but there's very high concentrations in some bays around the world. There's 7 bays where you can experience this phenomenon in all its glory. 3 of these bays we have right here. I mean, are we blessed? Yes, we are. So Vieques has one of the most spectacular bio bays that you can see. This is a tour that you do in the middle of the night. You hop on your kayak, you go out there, you know, it's all dark. But once you get into the bay, everything that touches the water lights up in these beautiful fluorescent colors. It is a wonderful thing. Almost like that movie Avatar. The second one with the water. Something like that. So when you guys come back, put it on your list. Bio Bay in Vieques and Flamenco in Culebra, okay? Right this way, guys. Okay, guys. So guys, 1493, Columbus arrived and we became a Spanish colony, right? That's why we still speak Spanish mainly here. But in 1898, we had the Spanish-American War. So in this year, the United States, they came, they invaded, and they took over Puerto Rico together with Cuba, Guam, and the Philippines. We all became part of the United States. In 1917, all the Puerto Rican people were granted the United States citizenship. So just like you guys, you're citizens. You guys all from the States? Yep. Yes? So I always tell people, you know, if you got the same citizenship as we do, you are the luckiest people out there. You can vacation with us as long as you want. No visa needed, no change of currency. It is really the perfect place to explore because you know how things work. You don't gotta change your money, you know what everything costs, you know where you gotta go. If you need some medicine, we got the Walgreens. We got Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, all the good stuff, you know. So you can have the comfort of knowing how things work if something happens to you where you gotta go. And all this while still being able to explore a whole different culture and a whole different setting that we got here on this beautiful island. So that's why I always say, you know, 6 months is what you need with us. Start planning it now. It's, you know, not just Old San Juan, but there's a whole island to explore. There's a lot of microclimates here. So the different places that you go, they're gonna be completely different than where you were before. Like for example, my town is called Orocovis. It is in the center of the big island. The geographic center and heart of Puerto Rico is what we call ourselves. And it is completely different than what you see here. First of all, it's colder. It's at least 10 degrees cooler than Old San Juan at all times, so a little bit nicer on the temperature. But it's also, you know, the Puerto Rican culture that you can see there, the way that people cook, the way that people communicate, the way that people party. It is a very, very unique, beautiful thing. So I always tell people, you know, when you come back here, don't just stay in the capital, but rent a car and go explore. My town, we are a little bit famous, I like to think. We have the 2nd longest zip line of the world. It used to be the longest, but then Dubai went into the longer one just to spite us, like our title. But I think, you know, what do you fly over in Dubai? Sand, boring. On ours you fly in between the mountains, over rivers and waterfalls. Beautiful, beautiful thing. And then also, Orocovis is a hotspot for local tourism. So on the weekends, the people here, they love to get together, the group of family, the group of friends, of and drive over to Automobiles to do bar and restaurant hopping. I mean, need I say more? No, it's a beautiful thing, you know, just as a pointer for when you guys come back that you can explore that as well. So guys, we became part of the United States. The building that you see there on your right, on my left, on your right, this is the first one that the U.S. constructed here. I like to think today we have a great relationship with the United States. We have more Puerto Ricans living on the mainland with you guys than we got right here. So the cultural exchange and the exchange of people is very out there. The one thing that is still a big point of controversy is the elections. Because even though we are citizens, we do not have the right to vote in the presidential elections like you guys that live on the mainland. Yet, executive orders and federal laws have more power than anything that we can decide here on the island. So it's still, you know, a sore point out there because it's not really democracy at its best when you have people not being able to vote for the person that's going to have so much power over them. But, you know, we do what we can. We just leave that whole mess to you guys. No, but it's an interesting thing because if we move to the States, to the mainland, then we get the right. If you guys move over here, you lose the right. So it's a matter of residency, not of citizenship. Interesting, there's a building just outside of the old town called the Capitolio, where we have all the politicians working really hard, where we got the Constitution, a bunch of monuments, and really good information pertaining to political history. So don't take people's opinions on it. Everybody got a different one. But if you want to find more about that, then Capitolio is a great place that is very near from here that you can explore more about this. Okay? So right this way, guys. Building to your left. We love the color pink. This one is called an arsenal. This is the old weapons warehouse from the Spanish that is now used as a custom house and for the Coast Guard from the United States. You're going to see a lot of pink throughout the city and a lot of bright colors. And also, you know, one very iconic thing that you can see here throughout the whole city are these blue cobblestone streets that you have here in front of you. These cobblestone are actually made from the slag from metal foundries, so they have about a 5% metal content in them. That's why they get the blue shade, because of the oxidation of the metals. And it's interesting, you know, each one of these weighs around 7 pounds. Ooh. There used to be many more than what we see today in the city. And if you do that math, that's a lot of weight that came and stayed in cobblestone because they use them as ballast on their ships. So they will fill the ships up with these things, come over, leave them here, and switch up that way for some other stuff, mainly gold and silver. It was a nice little exchange the Spanish had back in the day, but at least they left us the cobblestone, so we gotta put those out. Come on this way, guys, we gotta cross right here. Okay, we still have everybody, right? I'm bad at counting. Don't lose your significant other here. You may never get them back. Beautiful place. So big old wall here in front of us. Guys, this is actually the city wall. This used to surround all of Old San Juan. So by the 1800s, the Spanish had surrounded their entire city with a construction like what we see here in front of us as a defensive measure to keep their enemies out. Their enemies, mainly the English. But also the Dutch had a very significant attack, you know, and a lot of pirates going throughout the Caribbean during those times. So a couple of people that they needed protection from. You can see here on the map, this brown line is where the wall is still standing. So this whole part right here was eliminated in the late 1800s just to make the city more accessible. By this time, the enemies weren't as prevalent, you know, they had settled their beef with England and all that. And the city got more and more residents, and as more people started coming here, it got more and more difficult for the movement coming in and going out of the city of the people to happen. So eventually they just did a big demolition and took this whole chunk out just to open the city up and make it more accessible. Worked out great for the buses and all that stuff that we got these days, because in the original wall, it was only 5 entry points that were very narrow, very small. So we wouldn't have anything that we have today, you know, if it wasn't for the demolition that they were able to do. Now guys, to your left side, this is called Paseo de la Princesa, the Princess Promenade. This is a very, very nice walkway that takes you outside of the city wall and eventually to this point where we have one of the gates of the original wall system still standing. It is called La Puerta de San Juan. This is a very nice way, you know, to get around the city. When do you guys leave today?
2:30.
What?
I know, it's really early.
That is way too early. Okay, so I can't give you too much to do today. But when you guys come back, you know, this is a very very, very nice spot right here. On the weekends, it's always an artisan market that happens right here, so a lot of really, you know, fun stuff to buy. There's a beautiful fountain there toward the end. And we also have the old city jail right here outside of the city wall. That is now a much nicer place with the tourism company headquarters right there. And it's also a gallery that they have that's open to the public, no charge of entry and nothing like that. So put it on your list for when you guys come back, okay? But you can see here, you know, everything inside of the city walls is what comprehends Old San Juan. And then you can also see here, number 34 and number 22. These are the two main fortifications that protect the city. The most important one being this one right here. I don't know if you guys saw it on your way in, but if you didn't, when you guys head out later on the day, get on dock or get on your balcony so you can check this out, okay? This is the El Morro or San Felipe del Morro Fort, and this is the route that you guys will be taking to head out of the bay. So you're gonna pass right by here. You get a wonderful view of this fort, of the whole wall system, and also of our oldest fortification, which is right here called La Fortaleza. So La Fortaleza, guys, that is the oldest fortification of the United States. Is there any Floridian here that would like to argue with me? No? No St. Augustine? You know, even in Google, when you type that in, it says St. Augustine. But that is blunt discrimination because we are part of the United States, so we should be on the list, right? Right. So that would make Old San Juan the oldest city, La Fortaleza the oldest fort, La Catedral the oldest church. You get the point? We are number one. But guys, this is a really nice area to explore right here, so just when you come back, take advantage of it, okay? For us, we're gonna be heading in this direction now. Okay guys, so just to let you know, when the wall was still going here, just behind you guys, we had another one of the entry points to the city. Each one of them, each door or each gate, was established for a different purpose or a different set of people. So the one that was right here was designed for the people coming to do commerce on the island, the merchants, you know, wanting to sell or buy stuff. So historically, this area here behind me, this has been the financial district of the city. Of course, it looked very, very different back in the day. Today, what we have here is the building, the headquarters from the most important bank of the island, Banco Popular. I don't know if you can tell, but they wanted to make it majestic and sort of, you know, to display some of the power, you know, that the bank has, especially with the eagles and all that. There's a really cool place down here where it says Carly's. Carly, this was the keyboardist from the Beach Boys. So really, really good live music there. You come back here, you know, you want a romantic evening with your lady, take her here, nice jazz. And then guys, we're gonna be walking down the street. This one is called Recinto Sur. This is, I would say, the street where we got the most of the really good restaurants that we have here in the city. So if you want to get some quick lunch after the tour, or if there's something in particular that you want to try, this street here is really great for that, okay? You can read in almost all the restaurants having the best mofongo in town. A mofongo is a typical dish that we have here that has a lot of African influence. So the typical Puerto Rican lunch is rice and beans with some meat and a little bit of fruit vegetable or something like that. But when we are celebrating or when we want to do something fancy, we make mofongo. Mofongo is done with green plantains. I don't know if you guys know what a plantain is. It looks like a banana, but you have to cook it. So in the green form, they're savory, and the yellow form, they're sweet. And when you take the green ones, you chop them, you fry them, and you can throw them in this big wooden mortar that we call pilon. There you put broth and spices, stuffing, you smash it all together, and that makes a mofongo. It is delicious. I mean, rice and beans, we got the best recipes, but it's a very common food, you know, all around the world. And mofongo is, I think, a little bit more special. The plantains is something that a lot of people have never tasted, that is not, you know, as out there. So if you want to try one thing, that's what I would recommend. Right this way, guys. Okay, guys, so let's go up there. This is the headquarters for our tour company Get Shopped, okay? So you're going to be able to see one of the typical Old San Juan homes from the inside. Let's go in. If you can, just please hold this door open for the person behind you because it's very heavy, okay? a scoop of ice cream drowning in the espresso coffee. And for us, that ritual is very important. Some of the most important conversations, that you can have over a cup of coffee, because it just prompts you to sit down, to take your time, to slow your whole life down, enjoy that cup of coffee, and it leads to conversation, it leads to ideas. And this is not just us in the modern times, but way back in the day, one of the reasons a lot of kings and high politicians wanted to ban coffee is because of the same thing. The coffee houses was places where people would gather and talk about different ideas, some of them involving the government or the treatment of workers and such. So for a lot of politicians, they saw the coffee houses especially as a threat, because it led for intellectuals and for people just to be able to have the space to gather, to communicate, for ideas to get out there, and for sometimes, movements get started. But then also, we got the second floors, and we are the wrong capital of the world. You need a little balcony to save you if you thought you were still on the first floor aiming those doors, you fell down. So you see a lot of these very small, very narrow balconies on most of the buildings, just for the security, of people working with the doors. Also in the 1800s, this was the place to socialize. Those times, us ladies, or the single ladies I should say, they were not allowed to speak to any boys without having a male family companion present. So what the ladies would do is stand on these balconies, looking down, see what was looking good. And as they were not allowed to speak to the boys, they invented a whole language to communicate through the movement of their fans. So, you saw something good? You go talk to my daddy? I started moving down, that meant, the swipe, wherever people walking. But it's a beautiful, colonial style of architecture that predominates here. Also, don't be fooled by just a wall of buildings that you see on the streets. Over here, most of the structures, they have sort of like what we have here, our interior courtyard, or a place that's going to be open in the back of the building or in between of the block with the different structures, just with the purpose of having access to the cisterns. Most of the big items, we got springs, we got rivers, we got great sources for fresh water. We in fact have no desalination plants here because we don't need them. But on the island of San Juan, no such thing. So when the Spanish settled here, they were completely dependent upon collecting and storing the rainwater. This is why most of the structures have a cistern, and of course to get access to the cisterns, you need to get outside. So that's why we have a lot of the courtyards. And sometimes, you walk by the street, just look inside an open door, and you'll see that there's a whole world behind that. So guys, over here, we have two very nice places. Over here to the left, that big building is the University of Pedro Albizu Campus. It specializes in psychology, but it's a private university. I see a lot of young people here, so take note. We have also the University of Puerto Rico. Much lower tuition than many places in the States. You get your degree and you learn Spanish along the way. But we have accreditations to the United States too, so it's an option, even if you're living on the mainland. And then if you look here straight ahead, that yellow building that you see, that is the Church of San Francisco de Asís. Now this church was founded by the Capuchin monks. Anything sound familiar? Coffee direction? Capuchin? Cappuccino, that's right, you got it. So the Capuchin monks, there's many different ways that they tie it to the drink, but they say that they are credited, with inventing the cappuccino. That people would ask for this particular drink. So people would ask for this particular drink looking at the monks that have the same color as the robe. And then also the name, you see the similarities. This church that you see right here, this is one of my favorite ones of Old San Juan. And the front part that you see from the entry from here is part of the old church from the 1700s. But the main chapel, you see the lines there on the floor, this is where it originally stood, but they have done a reconstruction on the back side. And this church, people here from the city, this is a place where they can always go and get some food and get some basic necessities. So, you know, they really do the work. I think, you know, that religion has its base on of helping the other. And if you are religious, if you're faithful, or even if you're not and you just like religious art, the churches of San Juan are a wonderful place to explore that. This one, the San Jose, that's going to be at the top of our main street, back over there, and the San Juan Cathedral, those are the three main Catholic churches. And throughout the years, we have had many lootings going on in the churches. Whenever there was invasions, you know, the British, the Dutch, the pirates, they would always go to the churches looking for gold and silver because they kept a lot of that in there. So in that sense, a lot of the original treasures that we had in our churches, they were looted throughout the years. But that has given way for a lot of really cool donations to reach the churches. This one right here, it has the only statue that I've ever seen of Mother Mary with the big pregnant belly. I love it. And it's just, you know, sometimes you just look at this painting and you're like, oh, that looks just like me, or looks like just my neighbor. And it's just people have these different ideas or these different images of these important people from the religion, and they just put them in art, donate them to the churches, and you get to see, you know, all these beautiful ideas that people have about important figures. And Mother Mary and the Divine Child, Baby Jesus, those are two very, very important figures for all of Latin American folks. So this is something that you can always see present in the churches here. Yeah, so let's head up here, guys. We gotta go slightly more up on this road here to the left side, and then we'll make a right toward the oldest part of the city. On left right here. You see this, guys? You guys like music? We got really, really good Puerto Rican music. I don't know if you guys know a guy by the name of Bad Bunny. This is like our hero at this moment. And he's a reggaeton singer, so reggaeton is a genre of music to the reggae side. But in his last album, he does a lot of like typical Puerto Rican music, bomba plena, and he uses a lot of these instruments that go back to our ancestors, that go back to the Taínos. So what you see him holding right here, this is an instrument that gets done from a fruit that grows here, from the huera, and they just do these loops on it, and then with the pick, very, very nice instrument. But I just, you know, if you haven't heard Bad Bunny, look it up. He has some really, really good music on this last CD. Streets, because of all the beautiful colors, you know, of the buildings that we have here. But this is throughout all of Old San Juan. This is a very modern addition, you know, just to make the city more welcoming, to give it like a happier flair. We like the really bright colors. The only rule we have is don't go for the same color as your neighbor. They do shots, and the shot glass is a cookie. I mean, they don't pay me for advertising or anything, but I've heard great things. Continue, guys, one by one. This is called Casa Ayuntamiento. The core of this building actually dates back to 1604. So this is where the mayor of San Juan has his office, and it's where, you know, a lot of the politicians had offices throughout the years before, you know, us kind of organizing the buildings and all that. So for this side, the facade is completely different to what you see on the other side. Toward the other side, they did a renovation in the 1800s to model it after the City Council of Madrid. You know that famous building with the two towers? This is the mini version of that to the other side. But it's a beautiful place, you know. The city of San Juan had one very, very famous mayor in the 40s, 50s, Doña Felisa Rincón de Gautier. She was a lady, the first female mayor of a capital city in America. And this lady, let me tell you guys, she should be the example for politicians today, because she worked on the well-being for all Puerto Ricans. I mean, she didn't campaign that will just stay, you know, to her city, to the capital. She went throughout the whole island to give out shoes to the children that couldn't afford them, you know, to work for the rights of women, for the rights of enjoy. So a great person, I think that is what they all should be doing, just, looking out for us people. But she was just wonderful, not just because she was a lady, that worked her way to the tops when it was still completely male dominated, but also because, she was so humble at heart and such a great person that really did a lot of work that still to this day we are enjoying. The Head Start program for early access to education for little kids, this is based on the escuelas maternales that lady put in place in the 50s. Imagine that, right? So just a wonderful example of what it should be. Okay guys, let's continue right this way. Check it out here on the left side. And as we pass by, it's a beautiful, beautiful interior of this building as well. Okay everybody, so in this area right here, we have a lot of really important religious buildings. Starting of course with this one right here to my left. This is the San Juan Cathedral. Now the street that we just went down on, this street that we have here, this is called Calle de Cristo, the street of Christ. This is because the main and oldest churches are all located here on the street. At the top of the hill, there's also the San Jose Church, which structure-wise is the oldest church. But history-wise, in the history sense, it's the cathedral that we have here to the left. We like to differentiate a little bit because technically, that building is older than this one. But there has been a church right in this spot, in this location, since 1521. So that would make it, in a historic sense, the oldest building. Only thing is that first building was like a little palm tree hut, very, very light construction. So first hurricane that came through blew the whole thing away. However, in 1540, they did a heavier reconstruction that is still integrated into the last left corner of this building. It is a very beautiful church. There's a lot of really interesting, again, artwork that you can check out. This is also where we have the final remains of our first governor, Juan Ponce de Leon. You guys know him? Yes. Well, not personally, right? Yeah. But we've heard of him. He was the guy chasing the fountain of youth. That's his claim to fame. But he's also very well known in Florida because he was the first European to arrive over there. However, he was our first appointed governor, and in his will he stated that this is where his heart belongs, this is where he wants his final remains to be. So that's one thing that you can find in there. Also, the Vatican sent a really interesting donation, a wax-covered mummified saint from the 1st century. That's another one of the highlights. It's really cool. I mean, it looks like a doll in a glass casket. And I thought at the beginning, I was like, that looks fake. But then you look, his mouth is slightly open and you can see the teeth in there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And no, the teeth, they would stand the test of time. They last a long time if you take care of them. Yeah. And then also, guys, here behind you, this beautiful building is called El Convento, the convent. And this actually was a convent that was inaugurated back in 1654 with the Carmelite nuns. And it served as a convent with these nuns for many years, but eventually they threw in the towel and they completely abandoned the island. So the building stood empty for many, many years. It got to be a bunch of different things, even a brothel at one point in time. Big change of scenery. Yeah. But eventually in the 1960s, it was bought up by the Woolworth family. Gonna have a bit of a budget in there. So they were able to do a beautiful renovation on the building and turn it into a hotel. 67 this was the hotspot for artists and musicians to hang out. It was really famous, for a lot of famous people to be hanging out here. And I really love it because they have done a lot of effort to preserve the historic essence of the building while still making it a functioning, profitable thing as well. You got the elevators right next to the thing from the holy water. This place just behind the door that this guy is cleaning, that's the old chapel from the convent. Sky-high ceiling, stained glass window, a beautiful, beautiful room that was originally intended for prayer. Now we use it to party. If you got the money, you can have your wedding in the cathedral, your reception right here, and it will be taking place in what was the old chapel of El Convento. So very, very nice. And even though it's a private hotel, that you have to pay to stay here, they still have an open door policy because it is a historic building. So even if you're not a guest of the hotel, you're able to go in there and check it out. They have a beautiful courtyard that's open air in the middle, a 150-year-old tree that's growing right in the middle. Very, very nice place. And if you want to stay in San Juan, one of the top choices. They got the pool and everything on the top floor. rogativa. La rogativa, we have this beautiful monument here in honor of that story or of that legend. And I gotta start with saying, you know, history, we like to think it's very black and white, but it's not. It's a lot of gray areas and it's a lot of uncertainty in there. So a lot of things, you know, that we take as facts are not really facts. Christopher Columbus is a perfect example of that. And we credit him with a bunch of things that are not really true. We say that he discovered the New World, right? That first of all, we had people here. And then also the Vikings had arrived much before him, and even the Chinese on the other side of the continent. So just to my point, you know, whenever you hear stories or whenever even you look up information, keep in mind that it was, first of all, seen through the eyes of the Spanish, so we can't really be sure that they were accurate about what they were depicting. And it's just a lot of interpretation in there. So just keep that in mind, especially when I tell you the story of this monument. So this is pertaining to the last big attack that we had here from the English in 1797. And it said that they came, you know, they hit us with everything, a bunch of ships, a bunch of soldiers, just their last big attempt to take the island from the Spanish. But as they got here, the Spanish had all their defenses up and ready, and the English were not even able to get into the city. So they ended up doing this naval blockade out here. They just said, you know, we're just going to wait it out until they run out of weapons, and then we'll get in there. So as the Spanish were running out of weapons and starting to stress, they got the idea of asking God for a hand. That is what we have depicted here. The big procession that the governor ordered for all the faithful to go out on the streets, to be loud, to be bright, you know, to try to get the attention of God so he could help them out with the situation. And it said that the procession ended up being so loud and so spectacular that the English thought it was the backup that had somehow arrived to the island, and they left. Yes, from this we have learned that God is in fact on the side of the Spanish, not the English. Now, I mean, you know, it sounds a little bit sketchy, you know. Is it really true?
Yes.
We don't know how true. However, the accounts of the procession and how big it was are mentioned in many different accounts of the event. So that's how we go about history. When things are repeated from different person about the same account, we take it as having some sort of truth behind it, okay? And guys, from here, you also get a wonderful view of La Fortaleza to the back of you right there. That is the oldest fortification of the United States. Again, you notice how we're not afraid of it? No, but that big beautiful building, guys, this was the first defensive point that the Spanish established here in the city back in 1533. Back then, it looked very different. It was basically two of the towers, like the white one that you see there on the right, and four walls to be protecting the city from there. But if you notice, they really messed up on the location that they chose, because we still got a bunch of hill going up to this side. So if this is where you're going to keep a lookout from, you're going to have your enemies pretty much at your doorstep when you notice them. So a couple of years into this construction, they realized that mistake, and they went with a much better spot right in the corner of the island, right in front of the ocean, where they had the best lookout and they could spot the enemies much before they got here. This one, however, having been already a very strong build, they ended up leaving it to house the most important person of the island, the governor. So it's also known as the Executive Mansion, because still to this day, this is where the governor of our island has his or her residence. That's also why you see a lot of police in the area, because whenever we are mad at the governor or at the government, this is where we come to let them know. And then guys, from here you can also see that beautiful picture there in the back, all those beautiful mountains. That's where we grow our coffee. One of them toward that right side is where I live, all the way in the back. But you can see over 65% of our island is mountainous terrain, and this is very, very important for the harvesting of coffee. With coffee, you need certain properties in the soil for it to thrive. There's a lot of volcanic properties that we have in our soil. Altitude is also very important. They say that the higher that you go with your coffee plants, the stronger your flavors and your aromas in the coffee are going to get. So we have the altitude, we have the soil, and we use different techniques because coffee is a plant that doesn't like direct sun all day long. So you also have to, grow certain trees around it that provide just enough shade for the plant to be able to thrive. But over there, guys, and especially in my town, you're able to visit the haciendas cafetaleras. where you can follow the whole process, of them planting the coffees, and all the way to you be able to take those red cherries and look at them, in your hand right there from the plant. We like to call it coffee beans, but that is very, very incorrect. The fruit itself would be called a cherry. It's much more similar to a cherry than to a bean. But really what we consume of the coffee for our drink is the seed. So the most correct term would really be the seed of the coffee. But people always get confused, so sometimes we just say the bean. And then guys, last but not least, if you look here across the bay, you see those chimneys? That's the power plant that powers most of the metro. But more importantly, that yellow building on the right of it, that is the Bacardi factory. Rum and power go together. And down by pier number 2, where we had our first coffee, there's a ferry that takes you across the bay to that town, which is Cataño, which is also where the Bacardi factory is at. But then also when you guys are back here at the Barrilito, they also have a tour that you can do just to place. Another option. This is the one gate that we have left out of the 5 original from the wall system. This is called La Puerta de San Juan, the San Juan door, or the San Juan gate. And when you look at this, you can really understand, this wouldn't be working today. I mean, it's a very narrow entry point. Just because, back when they constructed this, it was horses and carriages for transportation. No SUVs, no trucks, nothing like that. So we kind of get it, it worked for them, but it wouldn't work for us. And also, when you look at this entry point, you can see how thick the wall is, right? In some places, up to 45 feet thick, but not one single wall. So for this area, for example, this is a double wall. And they have a hollow space in the middle that they would fill up with sand. So the cannonballs, that was the main weapon, used. And if a cannonball were to hit and destroy that outer wall, they could have the sand to take away the impact wave, and then they still have this inner wall to protect them from the enemies getting in.
There used to be a window up there?
That's great. Up there, no window. Not that I know of. I mean, we got the wall right here. It probably looked very, very different when they finished the construction. We got to take into account that weapons change throughout the years, that perspectives change, that the needs of what it was meant for change. So most of the parts of the wall, you see that there's, different tunnels that were at some point there. I don't think a window, but it does look like something was up there. So good observation. We'll have to see. I'll have to ask one of the older tour guys. Okay guys, just in case for the Paseo de la Princesa, where the artisans were in the beginning, this is another way to get to them. So technically, if you exit through here, you make a left, you walk by the fountain, and eventually you get back to the pier area again, okay? Okay guys, so let's head over to our next and last spot for this. Okay, come on over this way guys, so you can check it out, everybody. To the right is what we know as Umbrella Street. Yeah, we still got the Christmas lights
I
on.
love it.
So I'll just wait until these people move a little bit, and we'll go really quickly right outside of the tree, all the way to the end. There's a very, very nice coffee shop here on the end.
You want to feed them?
I leave it up to you guys. Stay here, you can stay here.
They already want you without food.
We gotta walk through, but if we make a quick, they're all right here. Oh, these people have food, I think.
Straight. Take the bag and throw them from the floor so they go on the floor.
I'll see you on the other side.
They're following themselves. Real quick. You'll be alright there. They don't come in there for you.
Christmas in September.
Hey, let me see. We got everybody? Okay guys, so this right here is Café Del Niño. One of my friends over there is going to give you guys a little bit more information. But just so you know, this is a beautiful little cafe, you know, that we have here in the park. This cafe here has the coolest coffee machine that I have ever seen. You can see it right here. This is an old espresso maker, straight from Italy. This costs more than my car. And over here, guys, we are going to be able to enjoy a limber. Okay, guys.
We're back in our room, all cleaned up because it was kind of a little sweaty day today.
Just a little bit.
Now, the excursion we went on was great. Learned a whole lot.
I'm on a sugar and coffee high. Holy moly. I don't consume a lot of sugar, but I sure did today. It was good.
I consume a lot of coffee, and I still did today.
Yeah, it was really, really good. It was fun. It was coffee, sip and stroll, and I'm pretty certain, and we're going to go back and look just to make sure, that it had stuff about touring the cathedrals. Now, we did see cathedrals, but we saw them from afar. So again, it's kind of like when him and I talk, you know, I'm at work and he's at home or at work and we're texting back and forth, that a lot of times you can't get context from the text messaging. So the description, maybe that's where we in our head thought, oh, we're actually going to go into these cathedrals and see them, or we just stood on the outside and they gave you the history of them, and it was really only 2 that we saw and then 1 that was further down that we didn't see. So that was a little disappointing because we love coffee and we love cathedrals.
Yes.
So, but other than that, the history that we got of San Juan was incredible. The tour guide, her name was Julia. She was great. I mean, we went to this one little coffee shop in Pigeon Park, like picture perfect coffee shop. Like, I am completely obsessed with this place. Like, I could have stayed there all afternoon.
Here's the name of it. Editing me will put it in there because I don't remember off the top
And
of my
I
head.
took a lot of pictures of that coffee shop because it was gorgeous. But I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
The weather was great because the sun wasn't out, so it was overcast. We got a little bit of liquid sunshine, which is rain. And yeah, I enjoyed it.
But it was a lot of walking.
It was
10,000 steps easily. Well, at least for me it was. But I take itty bitty steps.
Yeah. But it was really and very up and down hill. So you have to be in pretty decent shape to do it. Well, I don't know.
You have to be able to walk.
Yes.
A good 10,000 steps.
Steps, yeah. It was good. We did a lot. We had fun. We did buy some coffee today at the first place that we stopped and got coffee. So I'm excited to go home and brew it. But we first have to buy a coffee grinder.
Yeah.
Hello, Amazon.
But they did. Julia did tell us that the best way to buy coffee was in the whole seed.
Because it's not a bean.
It's not a bean. Coffee is not a bean. It's a seed. And the outside, it's the seed of a
berry.
A berry.
That kind of looks like a cherry.
Right.
So, yeah, it was really interesting. So if you ever have the chance to do the tour and you like coffee, I would highly recommend it. But just know that you are going to be on a sugar and caffeine high because it's been rough for me. The sugar was rough for me. We had at the very end, we had like this. It was like a frozen coffee, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Somebody asked what was in it, and they're like sweetened condensed milk, ice cream, and coffee, and then it's like mixed together, frozen, whatever. And that's where I was like, it was really good. And then you got an actual coffee seed in it, which was really good, but it was a lot of sugar for me.
Yeah, and this one kept saying, oh, well, here, you're going to have to finish it. I can't finish it. You're going to have to finish it. I can't finish it. I didn't get to have a bite 1 of hers.
Yes, you did, because you were like, here, at least eat the bean.
Yeah.
But I left like this much in it.
Yeah, I had like 3 bites.
But I couldn't finish, like it was bad. And I've been struggling this afternoon, not feeling that great from all the sugar I consumed today, but it's okay.
In the end, even though we did not get to tour the cathedrals like we had wanted to, the history we learned and the coffee we drank was well worth the price for this excursion. So next time you're in Old San Juan, I suggest doing this excursion. And even if you don't do this one, at least this will give you an idea of what the city's about, where things are located, and definitely go see Café Del Niño at the back of Pigeon Park.